Hello, and welcome to the Shadows of the Night and Day podcast. I'm your host, Harper Knight, and tonight we bring you creepy encounters from Reddit. So cozy up with a cup of your favorite beverage. Mine is hot tea. Turn down the lights, listen, and relax. For a little bit of background, I'm a 24-year-old female who loves scary stories, horror movies, true crime, etc. It takes a lot to scare me, though I haven't actually experienced many terrifying, life-threatening events, fortunately. On to the story. This was during the middle of August in North Texas in the summer of 2023, so the nighttime temperatures were around 100 degrees. My dad and one of my brothers, who's 11, drove an hour north into the countryside to go stargazing for my brother's Scout Merit badge. There are some twisty gravel roads in the forest as you approach Black Creek Lake. We got to see a coyote, a deer, and 2 raccoons. We live in a city, so we don't often see such animals. We thought that'd be our excitement for the night. We then finally made it to the recreational park grounds beside the lake. The layout is simple. If you're standing in the round parking lot, then the campgrounds are to the north and west, the lake is south, and the path in and out is east of us. There are no official campgrounds east of this recreational area, which is important for later. We got there around 10 p.m. and set up. We were able to successfully see some stars through my telescope as well as Saturn, which was exciting for us. Throughout this whole time, though, there were 2 parties, or what might have been one group in the parking lot and surrounding nearby area. One party was kayaking, and then the other party was fishing from the boat ramp area west of us. To the north in the lot were 2 cars. From that direction, we were constantly hearing a loud, irritating voice of a woman who was obviously in a bad mood and didn't want to be there. She continuously cursed at someone or no one in particular, and at one point was mad at someone for taking her keys and obstructing her from driving, which obviously made it sound like she was drunk or under some other influence. At one point in the night, around 11 p.m., we hear someone loudly, sporadically honk one of the car horns over and over in random patterns, and then we hear the obnoxious woman rudely tell someone to wake up over and over again, then proceeds to hold down on the horn for a few seconds at a time, and continue her assault on the horn and our ears. By this point, my family and I are just about ready to leave due to the loud commotion. I personally was fixing to go over there myself and tell her off, but I knew that probably wasn't the best idea. I definitely didn't want to put myself and my unborn baby in danger. Then for about 20 to 30 minutes we were able to watch the stars in relative peace with little noise coming from the other 2 parties. Fortunately, none of these people were directly involved with what happened next, but it may have been the cause of it. Just before midnight, we packed up our stargazing stuff and got in the car. Now, the gravel path to the exit is up a slight hill or slope, meaning from the parking lot you can't see past where the path goes up and around a couple trees. We drive up the hill, and just as the headlights came back down to illuminate the path in front of us and the trees to our right side, it was right then and there that we see a man wearing only black shorts and no shirt. The timing was straight out of a horror movie, to just suddenly see someone out of nowhere. He was in his late 20s or 30s and had short dark hair. Just as the light hit him, he was standing and walking right there, just to the right of our car, in front of us at a very close distance, only a couple of feet away. The guy had been walking towards our direction, and upon seeing us, quickly raised both of his arms to flip us both off with both hands. He keeps his hands and arms raised and is quickly loudly saying something to us with anger or something in his voice. We couldn't understand what he was saying though, since we had the radio on and all this was happening quickly. The second the man saw us, he started walking towards our car faster. My dad was driving slowly initially to avoid the agitated man, thinking he might need help. My dad in a confused voice says, "What is he doing?" But I just reply with, "Nope, go, go, go," and we sped off. I knew that this was not a situation where we needed to stick around and ask questions. It freaked me out a little imagining what would have happened if the guy had reached the car a few seconds later if we hadn't sped off. I'm not very familiar with my dad's car, and it scared me to think that I might have ended up pressing the wrong button to lock my door, and the guy could have opened it and done who knows what. We left and never had anything else happen, but we did wonder who the guy was and where he came from. The direction he was walking from had no official campgrounds, only the forest. Maybe he lived in one of the scattered houses in the woods we'd passed on our long journey. I wondered why he had been walking in our direction toward the recreational area. My best theory is that he wanted to confront the group that had been honking the horn and waking up the entire forest, but upon seeing our car leave, maybe he thought it had been us making the racket. Even if that's not it, or the man needed help, which is not likely considering his reaction to us, I couldn't help but feel a sense of danger. I hope that no harm came to those other two parties that night. Before I start, I must say I haven't told many people this, mostly because it's a very scary experience for me. This happened in Kelowna, Canada in the 1980s. I was about 14. I was babysitting at a neighbor's house while the parents were gone. They had a nice house like most in the neighborhood, and it was right on the corner where two streets connected. My house was right outside a bus stop across from theirs. This happened pretty late at night in the winter time, so it was dark out, maybe 11 or 12 at night. I was sitting on the couch when I thought I saw something out of the back door. It was one of those glass doors that led to a porch. It was weird though because I couldn't see much. You know when the lights are on and it's dark out so you can't see anything but black and your reflection? That's what I saw. But I could have sworn it looked like something was there. So I got up and walked close to the window. It definitely looked like something was there, but I still couldn't see. I got closer, still couldn't see. Honestly, should have just turned on the lights, but instead I put my face right to the glass and cupped my hands by my eyes to look out. Maybe about 1 inch from my face on the other side of the glass was a man. He looked tall and pale from what I could see, which wasn't much, and he was staring at me very scarily. Keep in mind, he would have been watching from the backyard. Naturally, I jumped back and let out a short scream, but stupid teenage me didn't call the cops. I called my parents instead. My father came over to take a look. There were still footprints in front of the backyard. I don't remember much after that because it just felt like a very unreal experience. You never expect this stuff to happen to you until it does. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the story because I sure didn't enjoy the experience. When I finished university, I moved back home until I found a job. As soon as I could afford to, I set up a profile on the website Spare Room. I was contacted by James, who had a room for rent on the outskirts of the town I worked in. It sounded good, but he wanted to talk on the phone before inviting me to view it. We had a chat one evening, and it turned out we had some things in common. We both enjoyed fitness, particularly swimming, and were movie buffs. By the end of the call, it had felt like chatting with an old friend, and I was looking forward to meeting him. James didn't specify his age, but I assumed he was in his 20s like me. When I went to view the property, he actually came out of the house next door to greet me. When he introduced himself as James, I was pretty shocked. He was at least 50, dressed quite conservatively, and looked like he was wearing a hairpiece. If he'd told me on the phone that he was in his early 20s, I wouldn't have questioned it. I went ahead with the viewing, but I'd already decided I didn't want to rent a room from him. I wanted to live with people who were a similar age to me. I was also put off by the house decor, which looked like it hadn't been changed since the 80s. When I viewed the bedroom, it looked like it was occupied by a young person. There were several pairs of trainers and a game console. James said that the previous tenant, Mark, was moving to London for work. Coincidentally, my name is Mark too. James invited me to sit in the living room after the house tour. I didn't want to be rude, so I did. He explained that he cared for his elderly mother who lived next door. Then he started complimenting my style, saying I looked cool. He proceeded to put his hand on my leg, which made me feel very uncomfortable. When he asked if I was interested in the room, I said I had some other properties to view but would be in touch. I then made my excuses to leave. Everything about him screamed red flag. I just wanted to get out of that house. As soon as I got back in my car, I called my mom to tell her how freaked out I was and I absolutely would not be living there. James texted me a few days later to ask if I'd thought any more about moving in. I lied and said I'd found somewhere closer to town. I did eventually find something with some other young professionals, which turned out to be great. Some months later, our town was shocked by the news that a man's body had been found in the field on the outskirts. He was later identified as Mark. I didn't think much of that until I saw a murder suspect was his landlord, James, the same James whose house I viewed. I saw him on the news and got instant chills. He was later convicted of Mark's murder. Hi guys, second time posting this on Reddit because it got deleted. I hope this is the right subreddit. Sorry for the bad English. This happened in 2022. To give you a bit of context, my brother and I have just moved to Los Angeles. He was 17 and I was 18. We moved to the US without our parents, seeking a better future since we came from an unstable country, and we were the only ones with papers. An acquaintance of our parents who owned properties in the area gave us temporary housing in one of the houses he was renovating. It was in Hawthorne. My brother and I, being innocent, didn't realize that the area wasn't safe. It was common to see homeless people and drug addicts, but we didn't give it much importance. I worked full-time every day to pay for rent and food, and also studied in my free time, so I didn't have much time to myself. My brother, on the other hand, was underage, so he couldn't do much about it. The acquaintance of our parents visited us from time to time, took us out for walks, and it was tough, but at the same time, he advised us a lot to face our situation in the best way possible. One night, my brother woke me up at 3 a.m. scared, saying he heard noises coming from the living room. Me being tired from work and also having to wake up early the next day told him not to bother me. He kept insisting until I heard something break. Immediately, I told my brother to lock the door and call the police. We were both scared, but I had to appear confident to not scare him more. We thought maybe it was Marco, the acquaintance of my parents, but it wouldn't make sense. Why would he be here at 3 a.m.? He would have told us he was coming. Then we heard footsteps approaching our room. The officer asked us many questions over the phone, asked about the place, how many rooms it had, etc. Then we saw from the window 6 police officers, armed with ARs. The officer on the phone asked us if we'd left the front door open and we told her no. She replied, well, it's open. The cops cleared all the rooms and escorted us outside. After a while, they confirmed that there was no one inside. After the scare, the officers asked us even more questions. We cooperated as much as we could. Suddenly, we heard a woman scream from one of the houses across the street. It was a scream like I had never heard before, of absolute terror. The officers quickly went to check and sent us inside. We secured everything, and talking with my brother, he told me the reason he was awake was because that night his girlfriend had cheated on him with his best friend and he couldn't sleep. Indirectly, thanks to her, we were able to act quickly and avoid a worse situation. Thanks to the infidelity, my brother and I are still alive and didn't get unalived in our sleep. That night I didn't sleep at all, and to this day I double check if the doors and windows are locked. The next day we found out that person had stolen our food, toaster, and laptop. Then we noticed a dirty, disgusting water bottle on the table. We knew that it belonged to the intruder. To this day we have no idea who it was, or what happened with the lady across the street, but seeing that there were no cops the next day, or no crime scene, Maybe she probably ran this guy off, or it was an unlinked situation. That would be a lot more disturbing. The cops never gave us any more detail and told us to be careful. My brother and I are currently happy and a lot more safe now that our family is reunited. We use this incident as a reminder to never ever let our guards down, and we sometimes laugh about the amount of luck we had. Never thought I'd be so grateful that my brother got cheated on. Stay safe. I take a walk every morning as part of my waking up routine. This morning, towards the beginning of my walk, I pass a man who asks me something. He's slightly too close to me, but not enough to make me uncomfortable. Just enough that I don't want to slow down or have to listen to what he has to say. I have my earphones in as well, and I don't take them out, but hear enough that he asks me for the time. Without breaking my stride, I glance at my watch, say 7:30, and keep walking. If he said anything else, I didn't hear. About 20 minutes to a half hour later, well far from the first time I came across this guy, that same guy walks up from behind me and asks again and again too close to me for the time. I tell him at that point to get away from me, stop following me, and that I already gave him the time. That escalates things immediately because he shoots back, "Why, is it because I'm black?" I respond, "No, it's because you approached me about a mile away with the same question." He says he lives in the neighborhood, so I say fine, but please stop following me. He denies following me, calls me a racial slur and then the B word as I cross the street to put more distance between us. This guy follows me across the street and keeps following me as I cross back over. At this point, I'm yelling for him to get away from me and stop following me, and he's repeating the same lines about being black and hurling racial slurs at me at the same time. I'm getting worried while there are people out at 8 a.m., either walking their kids to school or going to work. No one's going to step up because of a bystander effect. After I cross the street for a second time, he gets right in my face yelling about how he's not following me. I have my back against an apartment complex and am getting worried that things are going to get physical when a tall woman with pink hair walks up. I don't remember what she said, but at some point confirms to her that he wasn't leaving me alone. She's about the same height as this guy and starts to yell for him to stop following me. He is now being badgered by her, and he's also yelling back the same denials about not following me, being from the neighborhood, and accusing that this is all because he's black. Thanks to my lady savior, I'm able to break away. A couple that was exiting their apartment who witnessed all of this asks if I'm alright, which I say yes without stopping. I walk half a neighborhood block down to duck through an alley. As I'm walking down the alley, checking the entire time to make sure that guy's not following me, I see the woman with the pink hair has disengaged and is walking off. I'm so glad it didn't escalate for her, and I feel bad for not being able to thank her for her help. I take a circuitous route home, looking behind my shoulders every once in a while.